Herc, based on everything we know at the moment, it is Thursday night on the East Coast. Where do you think Gio Reyna should end up?
For a second, let's just go with the options that we have, okay? Olympique de Marseille, Nottingham Forest, Sevilla. Sevilla's about to get relegated. They're desperate need for something to change. I don't know if it'll change since the sporting director Monchi had left and he went to Aston Villa. Aston Villa is thriving, and guess who is not? That would be Sevilla. They just bowed out today at the Copa del Rey as well. Marseille, Olympique, do you know the situation there with their fans historically, the violence of their fans storming the grounds, the stadiums, the threats to the players, the coaches? Marcelo Bielsa and Jorge Sampaoli, they resigned, they quit on them. Like there's something there that I don't like about that situation for Gio Reyna. It's not what it once was. And Nottingham Forest, I know people are thinking, wait a second, that team that Matt Turner plays for, that team that's struggling right now in the Premier League, that team, it's not the same team per se. Nuno Espirito Santo, is a new coach there. And under him in the last 6 games, they've only lost twice. And in that run, they beat teams like Newcastle and Manchester United. We see they're the players who we would be, in competition with. Morgan Gibbs-White, an attacking midfielder. He's got like 2 goals, 3 assists. He's not been terrible for them, but he's not been, anything that you can say is just ridiculous. And you have Anthony Elanga from Manchester United. You have Calum Hudson-Odoi, on the wing positions that he could potentially fight for time out there. But more than that, I'm going to go with Nuno Espirito Santo and what he has done, or his ability to do, to clubs. Do you remember his Wolves team and how competitive his Wolves team, that Wolverhampton team, was with him? They ended up being a team that played in Europe. They ended up being a team that made household names out of the like, and I'm going to read a list here for you, okay? Out of the likes of Diogo Jota, out of the likes of Raul Jimenez, out of the likes of Adama Traore, out of the likes of all kinds of different players, Neves, who were there at Wolves, that under this coach, under Nuno, flourished. This could be a situation where now Gio Reyna has the platform that is greater than the French league, the platform that is bigger than Sevilla. And I'm talking about the Premier League, to showcase something under a coach that I believe plays an attractive brand and is turning things around at Nottingham Forest. Now, of these 3 options, that's where I would go. Nuno Espirito Santo. I would not want to see Giovanni Reyna with Gennaro Gattuso. Do you remember the last time we saw a temperamental player with Gennaro Gattuso was Michuki at Napoli? Keep him away from there. If these are the only choices, I will take Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I like that you say of these 3 teams, if these are the only choices. Because when I see this group of teams, my first thought is, and I don't know if you'll agree with me here, Herc, Gio Reyna could do a lot better. Now, maybe that's through the prism of an American fan and somebody that follows the U.S. men's national team and knows exactly what this player can be at his very best, because we probably only at least recently seen that with the U.S. But none of these teams, Sevilla, disaster. To your point, Marseille, I think some of those issues are a little bit further in the past right now. Things seems to have solidified a little bit. But none of these teams are wonderful places that you would say are an obvious step up from where he was at Borussia Dortmund. I think all of these you would say are either lateral moves or a step back. There's some things to like about Nottingham Forest. One is the formation. If we're going to just compare Nottingham Forest and Marseille, Herc, Forest played the 4-2-3-1 under Nuno, which is basically the same thing that the U.S. is now playing under Berhalter. And it's the one lineup that has the position for Gio Reyna, that middle central attacking midfield. I know you talk about Morgan Gibbs-White and you talk about those stats, and the stats in league play are not overwhelming. But that's a player with his own very serious youth national team resume. And right now, and that's actually, I think, the biggest question here is what's going to happen with that player? Because one, he's injured. So if that's a long-term injury, that position could be there for Reyna. But 2, he's also been linked quite a bit, especially right now with the potential move away from Nottingham Forest. I think the most recent links I've been seeing are Newcastle. So if he goes and that position opens up, it changes how I feel about Nottingham Forest. The other obvious Nottingham Forest, I think, benefit is what you get with the agent. This is a club that is almost entirely run by George Mendes. Not only is Nuno a client of George Mendes, right? So if there's a problem there with Gio Reyna, he just rings up the coach. The owner at Nottingham Forest is effectively a business associate of George Mendes. So if Mendes is the super agent, and he's very well connected with this club, I got to think he's vetted this club well. He knows they're going to find a way to use him, and that's why Nottingham Forest is attracted to you. But I don't think this feels in any way permanent, Herc. With where they're at in their own relegation fight, and you can point to Sevilla. Right now, Nottingham Forest, they're facing their own points deduction. That could come down. This team could be going down. And if they get relegated, this just shades of the three guys ending up at Leeds and going down last year. So for me, there's that one big thing about Nottingham Forest that I don't really see it as a long-term home for Gio Reyna.
I don't think any of these are long-term homes for Gio Reyna. And I think that's the underwhelming part about this, Sebi. That's why you think that Gio Reyna is better than this. And the fact is, Gio Reyna is not better than any Premier League team because he hasn't proven it over the last year. That's a reality. He hasn't stayed fit, and he's not gotten on the field. So it doesn't matter how big of a fan you are of Gio Reyna, he's not proven to be a Premier League player today. And it hurts for a lot of American fans to hear, but that's a reality. The best thing about Giovanni Reyna, and I'm sure you will agree with me there, is his ceiling. Because you know that he's got a massive ceiling and that he's got a talent level you can exploit. That doesn't automatically mean he's better than every single team in the Premier League and that he doesn't need to start somewhere. Is this the means to all? Is this where the road ends? He will be a Nottingham Forest or a Marseille player or a Sevilla player for the rest of his life? No, but he's got to play. He started two games this year in the Bundesliga for Dortmund. So he's got to do something.
I mean, you talk about his ceiling even if it's the Premier League, is a relegation fight the best place for a player who we're talking about their ceiling?
No, I'm not saying it's the best place. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Because I don't think there's a lot of garbage minutes in a relegation fight, right? If Nottingham Forest is up at the end of a game, they're not bringing Gio Reyna on to see it off.
Do you think he's a quality player?
I think he's a quality player, okay. But I think if he's going to go to Forest, he's got to start because I don't think there's a lot of minutes off the bench in a relegation fight for a guy like Gio Reyna. That's why the Morgan Gibbs-White next week or two is so important. If he goes there, I know Gio Reyna's good, and I know we think he has a high ceiling. Is he good enough to beat out Morgan Gibbs-White?
Well,
maybe. Is he good enough to come in mid-season and beat out Morgan Gibbs-White? That's another question.
He's better than all three. So you obviously think he's good enough to play there and play in front of White, in front of Gibbs-White. If that's the case,
there was a time when we were talking about Gio Reyna's next spots at some of the biggest clubs in the world.
Take that out of your head.
Marseille, Nottingham Forest, and a ruined Sevilla are not that.
This is now on Gio Reyna because we could sit here and blame Greg Berhalter. We could sit here and blame the people at Dortmund. We could sit here and blame everybody, okay? We could sit here and blame injuries. You sit here and blame whatever you want. At some point, it's you got to get on the field. And you have to stay on the field. I believe in Gio Reyna. You believe in Gio Reyna. Now it's time for Gio Reyna to repay that trust that everybody seems to show in him. There's a reason he went with Jorge Mendes, the power of a super agent. You've already mentioned how well connected he is to this club and many others. If you have this agent and you want to get to somewhere, it doesn't mean that's an automatic I start. He's got to play, and that playing is earned. It's not, this player is here, I won't play over him. You can't just think about football that way. You can't think this man's in front of me. You've got to, at some point, lift those socks up and those sleeves up and play. Win your spot.
There you have it. All right, so Gio Reyna, with seemingly plenty of options, we'll see if by the time we meet again on Monday, if we don't have his final destination, at least for the short term, as it looks like this will be a loan.